Good morning, or depending on when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name is Ross, and as always told, I had a voice radio, so today I'm going to be looking at Raticate and asking, is it time we all dusted off our Raticates and got them back out again? Now, we're not talking about Raticate Break, and this genuinely makes me a little bit sad. Raticate Break is a card that had so much potential. 2 energy, brings a Pokemon down to 10 HP remaining, and then you make sure they're poisoned, and then it just never worked. It never worked, ladies and gentlemen, and it's sad, but it's true. So today, we are looking at the Raticate from Evolutions, which I am convinced is rotating out in September, and seeing whether Raticate could actually be good between now and then. Now, quite simply, it is a card that for a single colourless energy does 60 damage for every special energy card in your opponent's discard pile. And essentially, this adds up very, very quickly. Let's take the best Pokemon in the format at the moment. Something like a Zoroark GX. Free energy in the discard, choice band, 210, 1-hit KO. Buzzwole, free energy in the discard, choice band, 210, 1-hit KO. Tapu Lele, who needs a choice band? You're just doing 180 when there's free energy in the discard, you get a KO. Same thing with Drampa. So, to start off right at the beginning of this video, if you can get the right number of energy in the discard pile, you are getting the KOs here with Raticate. You hit the numbers beautifully. So now the question comes, is it too fragile? Can we get the energy in the discard? And can we keep the energy in the discard? But let's start off with a whole fragile point, because this is unfortunately something we need to mention. The HP for Raticate is abysmal. Raticate's got 60 HP. That is utterly terrible. A Buzzwole just flat gets a KO with Jet Punch. Don't need strong energy, don't need Regirock, just 60 damage with weakness. The 60 HP is terrible, the weakness is terrible. To be honest, it's embarrassing. It ain't gonna stay around. The one thing you can say, however, Raticate has 40 HP rather than 30, so will not be KO'd by the residual damage from a Jet Punch. At least that's something. And while we're here, we should mention Rattata here. Rattata is awesome. It's got an ability where you just discard the Pokemon tools attached to your opponent's active when you play it down. Which means if your opponent's trying to use something like a Fighting Fury Belt, you can get rid of it using this. You can get a Pokemon in the active with something like a Guzma and then play this to get rid of the Floatstone to keep it in the active. Or just get rid of the Choice Band to make sure they can't get a KO on one of your EXs or GXs. You don't have to use Raticate here, because Rattata's got a really good ability. But let's start off here, looking at the kind of decks we've got at the moment. Now, there are some decks that just are not playing special energy. If you come across something like a Tapu Bulu Vikavolt, you're not going to do anything with Raticate, okay? Raticate is not a card on its own. It's not a deck on its own. It is a tech to put into other decks to swing matchups in your favour. But I think the really telling thing here is if we look at the winners of the last big tournaments in the US and Europe. So, over in Portland, Oregon, Xander Perro got first place, and actually Colter Decker got second place, with Garbodor Drampa. Well, kind of a lot of Espeon in there as well, but that kind of deck. And would you believe it? They play 4 double colourless energy and 7 psychic. And you kind of need double colourless energy for Espeon to do lots of damage. And you kind of need double colourless energy for Drampa to do lots of damage. The only one that's not using double colourless really is Garbodor here, although it does have a decent attack you can use double colourless with, but you generally don't. So there's 4 energy in the discard, and remember, the benchmark we need here is free. Free in a choice band KOs an Espeon, free without a choice band KOs Drampa. You don't need to get all of those double colourless energy in the discard, you just need to get 3 of them in the discard. How about the first place deck from Prague? Shockingly enough, it was Tord Reklev. Why would it be anybody else? 4 double colourless energy, 3 grass energy. So, here again, we have got a deck that's really relying on this energy. Now, it's Zoroark Golisopod, which means that Golisopod's Big's attacks and Zoroark's all attacks need that double colourless energy. Although it should, of course, be pointed out here that Golisopod does have First Impression, which is a decent attack that can be used for just one basic energy. And again, if you can get 3 of those double colourless in the discard, you're hitting 180 with a choice band, that's 210, and you're getting a KO on either a Zoroark or a Golisopod. This isn't to say you're going to win the game just using Raticate. I am not suggesting you use a quad Raticate deck. I am suggesting that you use a 2-2 Raticate line in some decks because it's 1 colourless energy, you're probably playing Choice Band anyway, and you can set it up to get big cheeky KOs and swing the match in your favour. How about the North Carolina, the Charlotte Regional Championship that Ryan Sablehouse won with Buzzwole Lycanroc? Well, here you actually do see a fairly lengthy 10 basic energy. That's actually quite good. But they also play 4 strong energy here, which means they're playing enough energy that if it hits a discard, you can go and get yourself that KO. Now, they're playing enough basic energy here, but they've got to draw into the energy. Maybe they've only got a strong energy in their hand, so they don't play it. But then they end up in this awkward position where they're not attaching energy because they don't want to have to put the strong energy on the board. Now, of course, if they do put the energy on the board, you just use stuff like Enhanced Hammer to get rid of it. That's not terribly controversial. Certainly something like a Sylveon deck that is used to just using all these hammers to get rid of your opponent's energy could definitely take advantage of something like a Raticate because they're going to be hammering the energy off anyway. In other decks, maybe you can't discard the energy, but this doesn't have to be your primary focus. What you can do here is just leave it in your deck to get 1 or 2 KOs here or there in the mid to late game. Now, the other couple things we need to talk about, first of all, recovery. Special Charge can be used, but it's not actually seeing a huge amount of play at the moment. Now, I can't sit here and talk through every single successful list we've ever seen in the past couple of months, but what I can tell you is, of those 3 decks I'm talking about today, none of them played Special Charge. In fact, the Buzzwole Zoroark deck that Ryan Sablehouse played, and actually at the same tournament, Igor Costa got 4th place with the same list, played no special energy recovery at all. Just did not recover special energy. If it hit the discard, it stayed in the discard. Now, the Espeon deck, the Espeon Garbodor, Xander Pero won Oregon with, no special charge, no recovery cards whatsoever. When they hit the discard, they stay in the discard. The thing you do have to mention is Zoroark decks will generally be playing Puzzle of Time, so Zoroark decks will be able, especially if you're playing against Tord because he's just that good, they will make sure if you need 3 in the discard, there's only ever 2 in the discard, and then would you believe it, they'll have the double Puzzle of Time to get them both back just in time. The other thing to bear in mind here is that Professor Sycamore, one of the main ways your opponent would be forced to discard their special energy, is actually seeing a drop in play at the moment because people are playing stuff like N and people are playing stuff like Cynthia. Sycamore's still seeing a lot of play. Again, to go back to those 3 decks, the Buzzwole Lycanroc deck played 4 Sycamore, 2 N, 2 Cynthia, so they're just as likely to play Sycamore as they are N and Cynthia, so it's likely that energy's going in the discard. The Zoroark deck that we saw Tord play in Prague actually didn't play any Professor Sycamore, it just played 3 N and 2 Cynthia, because of course you've got trade to make sure that you don't have to play too many supporters. And the Espeon Garbodor list played 3 Sycamore, but 3 Cynthia and 4 N, so you've got 7 Shuffle Draw against 4 Sycamore. Which is to say there are a whole bunch of decks that are going to be able to avoid playing Professor Sycamore. And then there are a whole bunch of decks that are going to be able to recover that energy even if it hits the discard, or are playing enough basic energy to not use a special energy. This is far from an it should go in every deck and win. But I've just shown you that the winners of the last 3 big tournaments in the US and Europe played a bunch of special energy and didn't play much recovery. and kind of rely on that energy. So maybe you find a space in one of your decks in the near future to put a 2/2 Raticate line in. Remember, Rattata's very useful. It is in some ways kind of like a field blower, except it only hits the active and can't get rid of stadium, so it's really not as good. But maybe it can swing some games in your favour. I'm not saying Raticate's now the best card in the format, and I'm not saying it's going to start winning loads of tournaments. I am, however, saying it is an incredibly useful card that should at least see consideration in a whole bunch of decks and should be seeing a lot more play as we move forward in this format towards World. But hey ho, ladies and gentlemen, I'd love to hear from you guys, so let me know in the comment section. Go nuts, but be nice. Give me some lovely, lovely theories. I'd love to hear them. Make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at the Wossy, and Twitch for some live action at twitch.tv/PTCGRadio. If you want to support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and so on, head on over to patreon.com/PTCGRadio. And do check out Wossy Plays, my video game and Dragon Ball Super channel for some more Wossy action. But by far, the most important thing as always is to look after yourselves until next time. Thank you very much for watching. My name is Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.